With Mattison in Vegas, do you think he gets another crack at a starting job and can redeem himself for fantasy purposes?
No, this has been season after season here that we're seeing big time efficiency issues for Alexander Mattison. This past season, Alexander Mattison ranked in the 50th percentile or lower in the following metrics: PFF rushing grade, yards after contact per attempt, gap grade, receiving grade, missed forced tackles on receptions, yards per route run, yards before contact, fumble rate, breakaway run rate, drop rate. It wasn't good. And I do think that this is probably the best landing or the best pairing in free agency. If you are a Zamir White believer, you wanted them to pick up an Alexander Mattison, because I do think that out of all the bodies remaining right now, Alexander Mattison is a non-threat to me. And I thought, for as much, the question marks as there were, there were some sentiments that, they want to go to a running back by committee approach, yada, yada, yada. They're not telling me anything that they want to do any kind of committee, because I do think you look at the kind of explosive playmaking ability that Zamir White has. Maybe they bring in another like third down receiving option, but what's Alexander Mattison going to do? I don't think there's a chance in the world that he's actually pushing for the starting gig. I think the only threat really now to Zamir White is, do they do something in the draft?
Yeah, that'll be the interesting one to watch, because there aren't like a lot of juicy running back spots left for these rookie running backs coming in. And yeah, in regards to Alexander Mattison, I mean, we've brought him up a couple times as well when we've been talking about like free agent landing spots. I think you even mentioned last week about how if you were hoping for somebody like a Tajay Spears to be a starting running back, then you're hoping that they bring in somebody like an Alexander Mattison, right? Instead of like a Tony Pollard, obviously. So this is a case where Zamir White, in a similar situation, right? They're bringing in this guy who has, like you said, the efficiency hasn't been there, hasn't been a consistent fantasy producer, has really struggled in the NFL. I have a hard time imagining him being consistently good for fantasy all of a sudden, especially in Las Vegas here, on an offense that is not going to be as good as what he was on in Minnesota, with those receiving weapons and the potential to score touchdowns. So yeah, I would much rather take a shot on Zamir White. I imagine ADP is going to reflect that. I haven't spent too much time looking into it. I don't know where fantasy drafters are going to get by June, July, but it's hard to imagine a world where Alexander Mattison is going to be higher drafted than Zamir White at this point.
I mean, he lost his job to Ty Chandler. So,
Yeah.
he's
been bad.
And this is coming from a person that I thought, at least from a volume perspective, like Alexander Mattison was a big winner for me going into 2023. I thought, because of that volume, like if efficiency were to continue to be a concern, that he'd overcome that. He's not going to get that kind of volume in this Raiders offense. I do think they want to run the ball. I think they want to, play that kind of ball control style of team where, they rely on the defense and play possession football. But I just no.
Yeah. And
Team
that's the thing,
Zamir.
right? Like, yeah,
And plus,
Team
did you guys
Zamir.
see those biceps? I don't know if you saw
No, I
the
didn't see.
the image that's going around right now of
No.
Zamir White. He was doing a presser, and he looks like a guy that could literally just pick you up into the air, twist you into a balloon animal, and put you back down. I don't
Wow.
know. I love off season, like workout hype
Right,
and
right.
all that stuff. And signing Alexander Mattison while I'm watching Zamir White look like he's got him. What are those floaties, like inflatable pool floaties, so you don't drown? Like, that's what his arms look
Pool
like right
noodle.
now. It just seems like a non-contest.
Fair, fair. Yeah, I haven't seen the Zamir White jacked up photo here, but I'll have to check it out. That potentially
Highly
raise
recommend.
my value at him for fantasy purposes. But yeah, like I'm with you. I mean, volume again. That was always the draw with Madison last year more than anything, and it could always come here in Las Vegas. Injuries happen and things like that, but it's hard to imagine spending any kind of significant draft capital on an Alexander Mattison. If you want to bet on the ambiguity of the situation and in hopes that he turns it around and wins that camp battle, if it is one, then you could spend a late round pick on him. But again, not overly optimistic about Alexander Mattison either.